Hey guys, Kevin here. So today's video is all about the end game. Where the left are trying to take us, at least socially. What their agenda is all about. You know, we've seen all this stuff over the past few decades. The advocating for late-term abortions and now even post-birth abortions where women can kill their children after they're born. Advocating for Rito with a Pedo and holding these events at local libraries where men in drag read to young children. Celebrating child drag queens like Desmond is Amazing. Holding ceremonies with satanic temples where they gather and cast spells on Donald Trump and then celebrating it in the media. Advocating for the ending of gender and the idea that there are thousands of genders. Pushing polyamory and even bestiality. All of these things are things we've seen the left advocate for or try to implement through policy over the last few years. And yesterday I'm talking to my brother and he made a joke at his girlfriend's family's expense. He said that they shouldn't have a gender reveal party because it's bad to gender a baby. And they asked him what he meant. Now, like many in America, they are left-leaning, but not politically active. You know, the type, they live in an urban bubble. They watch television media where they're bombarded with propaganda. They hang out on Twitter where it's all left-leaning stuff. But they don't understand what the policies are all about. In fact, they don't even understand what many of the policies are. There's so many people like this. And I told my brother, you can talk to him all day about the deranged stuff that the left advocate for, but really you have to start with what it's all about, what it's leading up to. And that is the destruction of the nuclear family. That has been the goal since day one. So a few months ago, there was an article that trended on Twitter from The Atlantic that was called "The Traditional Family Has Been a Mistake." This article gained widespread praise from the mainstream media and the Twitter talking heads, and it was all about how the traditional family has been a bad thing. Now, like all left-wing propaganda pieces, this article was full of fallacies. They argued that the traditional family has been bad because certain groups with traditional families do better than other groups that don't have them, which how is that bad? They argued that the traditional family is a mechanism of capitalism. Of course, capitalism has been great for the world, for America. And when you look at the alternative, how could a traditional family, if that's a mechanism of capitalism, be bad? They argued that these tribes over here, they don't have a traditional family structure. What they don't tell you is that these tribes over here are a family because, you know, they're all related. They all have, their family tree is a telephone pole, if you know what I mean. And they also don't tell you that these tribes over here live in mud huts, while we in the West, with our traditional families, live in 3-car garage houses. I mean, what do you expect? The article was not written to win an argument. The article was written to do what left-wingers always do, to push the Overton window just an inch further. So during my break in filming, my daughter Rose brought me a rose, and I started thinking that is the ultimate expression of love. You know, this young toddler's love for her father, there's nothing like that. And how just disgusting is it that people would actually say we should abolish the traditional family and let the state raise children. Children who will never know that love. They won't learn what love is. And that's what the left want. They want utilitarian people. And the hypocrisy is that all of these people advocating for the destruction or abolishment of the traditional family, all of them come from very wealthy, intact families. They have benefited in every way from capitalism, from the traditional family, but they're advocating to abolish it. And you know what? I almost rather Marxists be honest about wanting this. Marxists always have to lie about what they want policy-wise. They always have to lie about what their true agenda is. People like Vaush, right? If you took Vaush and you had him go out onto Main Street and say, "Hi, my name's Vaush. I'm a Marxist pseudo-intellectual from California, and I want to take away your kids, take away your property, and make you work at a factory that you don't own, where you can't advance for pennies a day, but I'll give you free health care and you'll get free housing in a 600 square foot apartment." If they went out and said that, if Vaush was honest about what he wanted, people would immediately reject him. But these mostly spoiled white children of elites or children of upper middle class Americans who have benefited in every way, they are the ones mostly advocating for policies that go against everything that they have benefited from. And this is straight from Marx. The idea that we abolish the family and replace it with state raising of children. And the left used to be honest about that, but then they went underground and they started chipping away at the institutions and the traditions that built the American family. That's why if you go watch television, going back to the 60s, you see Leave It to Beaver, then you see Al Bundy, and then you see Jersey Shore, and now you see, RuPaul's Drag Race, men painted as stupid, women in all of the leads, punching out grown men, all of this stuff to give people a false sense of reality when it comes to male and female hierarchies and the family structure and what it should be. A good example of this is a recent post on Twitter, a picture of a family, a white family with 3 healthy kids, all smiling, wearing matching outfits. That was shared on Twitter, where people insulted the family, threatened the family, called the picture dark, said that this is white supremacy. Everything that portrays a healthy, happy family is considered bad by these people, but they don't understand where that comes from. A professor named Sophie Lewis wrote an article for Open Democracy this week saying that the pandemic should be used to abolish the traditional family. In her article, she said, "We deserve better than the traditional family unit, and the pandemic is an excellent time to practice the abolishment of the family." She said, "Feminists for decades have argued that the nuclear family functions as a kind of technology for producing and reproducing human beings along the lines of binary sex, because binary sex is bad, national identity, because having a nation is bad, of course, racial loyalty, because anything that doesn't celebrate every other race except your own is bad, and heterosexual subjecthood." And those are her words. In her article, she points out to the rise in domestic abuse during the lockdown as evidence. In fact, that's the only thing she shows that argues that the traditional family is bad, because there's no evidence that the traditional family is a bad thing in any way. In fact, her own evidence is dishonest. Yes, there are more abuses during this pandemic because of the lockdown, but what she left out is that every statistic shows that children and spouses in traditional families with both biological parents are the least likely to be abused. In fact, they're the most likely to do well overall. Everything from college acceptance for the children to better careers in adulthood, all of that is tied to the traditional family. They're less likely to commit crime, more likely to be happier overall. All of that is because of the traditional family. You know what really disgusts me about our opponents on the left? This idea that they think they can challenge human nature itself. That they think that their theories are better than 10,000 years of human civilization and tried and true practice and tradition. For example, they want to abolish the nation state, abolish borders, abolish private property ownership. They act like these are new ideas, that these things have never been tried before. They want to abolish prisons, abolish courts, open the borders. All of these things are not new. There's nothing new under the sun. They've all been tried and failed, and that's why traditions exist. Because our institutions are the ones that have survived over thousands of years. And now they want to dismantle the family, which is at the core of all of our institutions. Everything starts with the family. Family, then tribe, then community, then city, then nation. All of that starts at the family level. And they want to go up against human nature. And what alternatives do they offer? Well, not much. In an article for Splinter, a university professor called for us to raise children in facilities out in the country. State-run facilities where children would not have the undue influence of parents and would be able to run around freely. Sounds like that place I brought my dog, you know? A nice place in the country where they can run around and play. Now, in the article, the guy argues that parents have unequal access to resources and property. And so, instead of saying, all right, well, some families have more property, they have more resources, we should try to get other people to plan their families for when they have more resources, or maybe adopt their kids, give up their kids for adoption to these traditional families that do have more resources. Instead of that, they're arguing, no, let's just send all our kids out to a government facility where they will have less resources. Because we know that while the traditional family has the best opportunity for success, the lowest opportunity for success is for children in government care. They are the most likely to be abused, the most likely to grow up unhappy and poor. And so that's the solution, right? Like all Marxists, their idea is not to lift people up, but to bring everybody to the bottom where we're all equally living in shit.